everybody. Welcome to the Training, Learning, and Development community. Happy Friday to everybody. We're here with another member showcase, and a pretty special one, I would have to say. We're here with Debbie Richards, who I have seen around for years and years, and Debbie has even spoken at one of the Training, Learning, and Development community conferences, I think the 2009 one. And so I am really honored to actually have Debbie here, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation, getting to know her better, because I was just saying before we started, oftentimes we go to these events and we see lots of speakers, but we have no clue as to like who they are as like it's people. And this is a great opportunity to finally get to talk to Debbie about her background, how her journey in L&D and all that good stuff. Before we get going, let's see who's in the chat. Oh, Cassie is here. Hey, Cassie. Cheryl,
hi, Cassie.
Danny, Elizabeth. Yeah, thanks for joining us. I'm sure more are going to be jumping in soon. Okay, so most of you probably know this format. We got like 30 minutes and a bunch of questions. And I'm just going to get into it with Debbie. So, Debbie, why don't let's hear your quick intro of yourself right now. I'd love to hear that real quick.
Well, I always tell everybody that I'm a learning geek. I've been in the industry for a long time. I love it. I love being around people and working with them. And the mantra of my company is we make things click. And I certainly try to do that with folks, making sure that they understand technologies. I do a lot of work with enterprise organizations, working with different types of technologies, and just trying to make sense of this crazy world that we live in.
Right. Now, I totally agree. And I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and you started training people like in the 80s?
You're going to make me feel really old now. I'll just say that my first job out of school, I was a robotics programmer for Texas Instruments, and I programmed robot arms, and we actually did it with paper tape. So that sounds ancient, but it really wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And then I worked as a programmer in several different industries for a while, and started teaching at a local college when PCs first came into fruition. And I taught people how to use DOS and some basic programs. And then I started working, teaching just basic computer science classes, and love that. And I think the reason I enjoyed it, and I think the reason the students enjoyed me, is I was actually working on projects as a programmer. So I could relate to them and I could share experiences. So as I taught, I shared my life experiences and told stories, shout out to Rance Green about telling stories, but just shared information that was relevant and talked about what it was like to be working as a programmer. And I think that really hit home. I had a high success rate with my students, loved teaching, and then started several companies on my own afterwards.
Right. Wow. No, that's amazing. So, I mean, your love for teaching, what sort of got you moving in that direction? Like just becoming a trainer, an educator. Is there anything in particular that kind of, nurtured you in that way?
Yeah, I'll share a couple of early stories. One, I'm the oldest of 6, so of 5 younger siblings, and I used to teach school. The rest of my brothers and sisters, whether they wanted to learn or not, when I would babysit them, we would sit down and I would have lessons for them, and I love doing that and just being involved with my family and my friends and sharing things that I learned. But in high school, one of my first jobs was working for McDonald's. And I'm sure that there's some folks here on the call that did that as well. But I migrated to becoming a store trainer. And then I started training whenever there were new stores opened up. The franchise organization that I worked for, they sent me off to school. I had to learn all the processes and procedures. And McDonald's has an excellent school for how to do things and step-by-step directions. And there are reasons behind the why they do things a certain way. And I love that. I loved teaching people the processes and procedures and just carry that forward into the life that I am today.
Wow. And how about the geek part, the learning geek, and even the technology geek part? When did that happen in your life?
Yeah, I would say that happened early on. I mean, I was the girl in high school that was in the debate club. I was president of the library club and on the student council. And this is going to really age me. And if any of you still have one of these, but we had a slide rule club where we would practice to see who could solve problems the fastest using our slide rules. And I think that's pretty geeky. I'll just put that out there.
That's amazing. That's great. Well, let's talk about like some of the projects that you're working on right now. What have you got going?
Sure. So I love collaboration, and I'm working on several projects where I'm collaborating with people across the country. I have a project that we're working on for a emergency management organization for a large metropolitan city. I can't name the city, but I'm working with people from all over the country. We have a project manager that's based in New York, and then the customer is based on the West Coast, and we have different people that are doing different things. And my role is to advise on instructional design, on accessibility, making sure that everything that we do meets the needs of the customers. And I love that. I absolutely love that. I'm also working with another enterprise organization. We're implementing their talent portion of their learning management system. So we just finished implementing performance management, and this year we're implementing succession management. So I'm working with the internal group and also with the vendor and some other resources to provide the client everything that they need. I'm also mentoring some folks, working with some organizations, looking at existing learning programs and offering some advice on making things a little more interesting, taking them to a new level, revamping learning. So I'm working with a group on the East Coast on revamping some onboarding, taking it from instructor-led to kind of a hybrid approach, doing some more projects in virtual learning and augmented learning, and talking a lot about project management and getting started with immersive learning.
Yeah, and it seems like you are always busy. You're always doing something, right?
And I've been trying to slow down. I said I'm going to try to slow down because I want to mentor more people. I want to do some work and just enjoy some things. But it just seems like I'm always busy. Yes.
Yeah. And so, wait, that book that you just authored, right? That came out recently, didn't it? Or how long ago did
it came out in 2019.
Oh, okay.
It was about getting started with augmented reality, but now I'm working on more articles. I'm getting ready to publish an article for ATD on just preparing for immersive learning, and I've been working more on topics around that. There's so much that we need to do if we're going to bring immersive learning into our organizations, understanding how to prepare an RFP, understanding how to educate our business units and our internal folks, upskilling and reskilling folks. I just think that it's a topic that we really need to be thinking about, because it's going to play a major part in where we're at now and into the future.
Have you seen the demand for immersive learning change over the past year with the pandemic?
I have, and I've seen more and more people that are interested in it. They're trying to understand how to include immersive learning in their environment. I think a good option, of course, is a hybrid approach where you can do some online learning. You can have an immersive learning event. And then if you need to, you can have instructor-led training or follow-up. I think it has a real solid place in what we're doing, but it's not a one-shop solution for learning.
So let me go back a little bit. Now, you were talking earlier about how you had started a multimedia company. Tell us about that, and how is that what kind of blossomed you into this whole, VR and AR sort of, world?
Sure. So I started a multimedia company in the early 90s, and back in those days, it was emerging technology. One of my first customers was Compact Computers, and we helped build their multimedia department. We did some amazing projects for them. One of the projects that we did was we helped them with a interactive presentation that their new president was going to present at a big conference in California. And he was on the stage with people like Bill Gates and Stephen Jobs, and he wanted to make sure that whatever he did was going to be perfect. So they hired us to help him with this presentation. So we actually had video on laser discs, and we had other things that were gee whiz technology back at that time. And I'll tell you, I was in the audience. I had a headset on. We had redundant systems set up and everything, and we were producing this piece. And Bill Gates got up and he was talking about some technology, and blue screen of death appeared, and then Stephen Jobs got up and there were some problems with their technology. And my moment of pride was our customer got up and started peaking, and we had rehearsed things. We'd gone through things and tested and retested and done all of our risk analysis for the event, and it came off perfectly. He had a 35-minute presentation, and it was gangbusters, and he got a standing ovation. And, we went back with, the attaboy sense of pride of what we had done. So that was an early introduction. And I did some really interesting projects with multimedia. We did a project for the city of Houston that for their visitor center that introduced people to the city of Houston. And we had network systems with a back-end database with information that the staff could update on a regular basis on things to do in the city and where to go and where to eat. And this was before internet. So, people would go to a kiosk to find out that information. It was multi-language. So we had it in English and Spanish and Vietnamese and Japanese, because we have a huge international population here in Houston. And I also got to sit down with a musician and compose some original music for the program as well. So it was that was a fun project. My partner and I also developed some computer animation that was used in a grand opera. And we also did a poster for a Houston astronaut that went up in outer space. And she brought that back and signed it and gave it to us. So those were just some really cool things that we did. Just lots of fun things. And in early days of learning too. So we were a Macromedia dealer, and we did development with Macromedia Authorware. And I don't know if there's anybody online now that did work in Authorware, but that was the predecessor. So a lot of the things that we're using now, and it was a wonderful program. I miss that program very much.
Yeah, I hear that so often. I remember early days actually going to the Macromedia offices, and before Adobe jumped in, and it was just such a an incredible experience to actually go over there. So out of all of these projects, is there anything, like any one that sort of like is your pride and joy that you can share with us?
Yeah, so I did a project, and this was back in the mid 90s for that same astronaut, and it was a project where she wanted to do a summer camp for students from all over the world. And so one of the things that they wanted to do was they wanted to have a 24-hour chat with kids from all over the world. So Apple underwrote the project, and we sent Apple computers out to some kids in Ireland, in the South Pacific, in Asia, South America, in the United States. And this was before we had a lot of the technology today, just like we have that we're doing now, but we use chat rooms to talk to the kids. And we did a 24-hour chat room with kids. We had guest speakers. Muhammad Ali was one of our guest speakers, and it was just fantastic. I mean, it was really neat. We had moderators on each of the chats because we wanted to make sure that all the kids stayed on topic and that, they had a good environment to share and open up with. And then at the end of the week, we had a big gala at the Chicago Stock Exchange. And Mae Jemison was the astronaut, and she was a big Star Trek fan. So she invited some of her Star Trek buddies, and I actually got to have my picture taken with some of those. And that's like my major geek out moment, having your picture taken with your Star Trek heroes. So,
okay, I need to know which heroes, please.
Well, Uhura, of course. Okay. And then there were a couple of other characters that were there as well. But that was the high point for me, was to stand with Uhura and to stand with Mae Jemison, two of my heroes, and take a picture.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. That is great. Yeah. And it just sounds so much like, you just love being able to kind of just use education and your generosity to to spread it throughout. It seems like whenever I've seen you speak, you're just really effusive about being able to share knowledge, and it's always, that's something that's always stuck with me about whenever I've sat in your sessions or watch you speak at events. So tell me a little bit about that journey. When did you start focusing on speaking at ATD conferences and even becoming an ATD president?
Yeah, so my journey with ATD started, I would guess, about 20 years ago. I started to get active in my local community when I moved to Houston. And I was telling somebody, I said, these guys, they're stuffy. They're not talking about the stuff that I want to talk about. We'd go to the meetings and everybody's all dressed up and they're drinking cocktails. And, remember, this was in the mid 90s. Okay. Yeah. So that was that time. And I just didn't feel like it was my place. And I'll never forget this lady told me, she says, Debbie, if you don't like it, change it, and do something different about it. And basically told me to put my big girl pants on and get over it. So I did. And I got involved with the group and started bringing in speakers and people that I thought that the people that I ran with would be interested in, more of a technology bent, more of a learning bent that was in tune with my beliefs. So that really helped. And I became a member of the chapter and eventually became a member of our board and was chapter president in when was I president? 2013. And then again, I was president last year, which was a very, very difficult time to be president. And I'm still active. I'm past pres this year, and I'll be real active in our chapter. I'll give a shout out to all my Houston folks who work so hard to serve their community. I think between the communities like the TLDC and then the Learning Guild and ATD, all the other communities, Will Timeheimer's community, all of those, everybody has been doing a marvelous job of engaging folks and setting the path for a new generation, which is so important. We need to make sure that that the young people that are coming into learning are inspired and they're not discouraged, and that they understand that there's a place for them and that they can have they have really cool ideas. They have interesting things, perspectives that they're bringing. But I also want them to have a sense of pride and understand that, let's don't put courses out there that just check the box. Let's try to engage our leadership into spending the time and effort to create really, really good learning. And if that's one thing that we can do as mentors and leaders, then we can say we've done our job.
No, that's great. I totally agree. I mean, I even feel it's a little bizarre for me to kind of look at, younger people and think, wow, there's this whole new group of individuals that are coming into the space that are absolutely brilliant and are bringing, all of these new things that are kind of revolutionary in so many ways. And they need to be nurtured too, but that's absolutely the case. I mean, I just feel like in my career, I've been in this space for like 15 years, but I've just seen different sort of phases and groups that have come in and out. Like, when I first started, back when I was at the first at the e-learning guild, it was like Jay Cross and kind of that group first sort of like being this central to the entire scene, and then it would just move through, and different folks would come in, and there's now a whole new group of people that are kind of at the center of things, and it really amazes me. So I love that. Now, talk a little bit about your mentorship. Why do you feel like that's important for you to do that right now?
I think it's important because we need to encourage people to have a voice. We need to be their cheerleaders. I, you know, I know people can learn from us. They can learn from our experiences, but we need to listen to them and to inspire them and to help them in their journey. And I think it's really important for those of us who have had a long career in learning to do that, because we have so many life lessons that we can share with people that will help them be successful. And I think that that's to me that's my primary purpose now. And I think that if we can do that, it enriches us as well. I attended a session last Friday. I went to this session, and it was a celebration of a group of students from different universities in Houston who have been developing projects in immersive learning. And so they talked about all the members of the team that had to put together the project. So there was a project manager, there were graphic artists, there were programmers, there were different people that were involved. And we got to see their journey. We got to see how they started on their projects all the way through completion. And we watched about an hour and a half film. And I found it fascinating. And to me, the young man that impressed me the most was a project manager. He wasn't the developer. He wasn't the person who created the cool graphics or anything, but he was the one that kept the engine going. And he was the one who made sure that they were on time and that they delivered what they were supposed to deliver. And we need to make sure that people understand that that's really important, that we that if they want to have a place, especially in enterprise America, that they need to understand how to travel that road and how to navigate through some of its challenges. And that's the biggest thing that I think we can do as mentors.
Wow, that's an amazing, what an excellent observation. Now, so just looking back, is there anything in particular for you, yourself, like if you can go back to who you were before you started your career in instructional design, is there any advice that you'd give yourself?
I think the main advice I would give myself is to make sure that I take time for myself. I know when I started my own companies, I said, "Oh, I'm going to start my own company, and I can take time one afternoon and go to the museum or sit outside and enjoy myself." And I have found that over the years, I don't take that time. So that's a lesson that I would go back to my younger self and say, take time to do that. Take time to go on walks, to exercise, to do other things. Don't just concentrate on work, because the work will always be there. But, your family, your friends, that cup of coffee with somebody, that engagement, that's so important. And we all need to do that.
Wow. No, that's great. I don't think that I've heard that one yet from anybody in these showcases that we've done. And we've done quite a few. We've done over 30. So that's a good one. That's great. Now, can I sort of shift a little bit over to like the augmented reality and virtual reality stuff that you're doing? And, I wanted to know, like, I know you're getting involved in a lot of projects, and I've seen some of the things like in your presentations, like really, really impressive. But is there something like on the augmented reality side, something that you've seen that has just really impressed you that you can share with us?
Well, I always am amazed by things that are going on in immersive learning in both augmented reality and virtual learning. And I'll just say that if any of you are interested, there's a new book that just came out this week by Kathy Hackle. Her last name is spelled Hackl. And go to Amazon and get that book. Not only is it an amazing book to talk about current things in augmented reality, but the book covers augmented too. And it's a good read. And then the other thing that I'll share is I am currently reading this book by Jeremy Dalton called Reality Checks. And it's kind of changed my perspective on a few things. Just looking at things in augmented reality, virtual reality, and understanding how to bring that into the business world. There's some cool stuff that's happening. One of the neatest things that I thought of, it kind of made, it was a geek moment for me, was I was on Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg made a comment about some new virtual reality technology. And, Facebook owns Oculus. So you'll hear some of that, but that kind of geeked me out because I had to immediately go out and check out what he was doing in my Oculus world. So I'll say that, it's just there. It's things are happening really fast, and there's a lot of things happening in immersive learning.
Wow. So, yeah, I know. I do have a virtual reality headset. I have a HTC Vive, and I don't have a ton of time, in my life to spend, running around virtual reality. But I have to tell you, every time that I do go there, and it almost feels like it's a place, right? Like when I talk about it, it's like a place. But when I do go there, every time I'm like, oh my, wow. It seems like I forget every time just how crazy it is to put that giant headset on and go somewhere else. Cause it really does feel like it's somewhere else entirely. And I know with augmented reality, like the some of the things I've done, I've gone to a couple of events and seen some really interesting augmented reality instances, and just the future of learning with augmented reality, it just seems tremendous.
I think we're going to see it rise because it's such a fantastic performance support tool.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to see more and more people utilize it. It's easy to use with our smart devices. There was an ad the other day on TV for a Volkswagen, and it was augmented reality. And I was like, wow. I mean, it's mainstream. I mean, it's out there. So I think that is going to be the one that just becomes commonplace, more so than virtual reality.
Right.
But virtual reality is really going to I think bring us back into community, because when you enter a virtual reality world, there are conferences, there are other things that you can enter that give you back that sense of being together.
Yeah.
And we saw more and more of that last year during the pandemic.
No, I agree. There is, I think they're called the Wave XR or the Wave VR, that they do like small music festivals in virtual reality. And every once in a while I jump into those, and you can see that sense of community in there. In fact, I remember going in once and I didn't realize that there was a microphone built into the virtual reality headset, and someone started talking to me. And I was like, who is talking? It kind of freaked me out. And then I ended up having this big conversation with a stranger. It was really, really interesting. So, okay. So Debbie, if you weren't an L&D professional, what do you think that you'd be?
Well, I'll just tell you that my minor in college was theater. And in my 20s, I did a lot of theater work. I did acting, singing, dancing, directing. I can tap dance. And I always said that if I couldn't teach, I'd act. I'd be back in that arena, and I may still do that. I mean, I stopped doing it once I got really, really busy into my career, but I always loved it. I loved being on stage.
Yeah, it seems like some of the best speakers out there are always ones. I mean, look at Cassie saying same, but that they have that theater background, just that interest in performance. And so I guess I'm kind of not surprised.
We are all ta-da people.
Totally. Yeah. Cassie is definitely a ta-da people.
Definitely.
So there you go. Actors who want a paycheck. Cassie's saying actors who want a paycheck, trainers. That is great. And so Debbie, if there is one thing that people should know about you, what is it?
Well, I am a technology geek. I don't know about you, but I love trying out new things. In fact, I brought props. So this weekend, my projects are, I'm going to learn how to use this new Pivo device for my smart device, because we're looking at that for hybrid meetings. And I also am going to have fun with pets. This is Furbo. It's a pet camera that distributes treats, so I'll be doing that as well. And then last but not least, I know there's some people that know I collect Pez dispensers. So this is one of my favorite Pez dispensers. This is the Be Happy Pez dispensers. And I love giving Pez out. If you see me at a conference, a lot of time I've got a bag full of Pez. You can always be the cool aunt or the fun adult when you got Pez.
That's totally true. Oh my gosh. Debbie, thank you so much for your time this morning. I really appreciate getting to talk to you and just getting to chat with you a little bit, just outside of you being, a speaker in front of a standing room only room. We're actually being able to just sit across in a video podcast and kind of talk to you and get to know you better. I really appreciate your time, and thanks so much for being a part of TLDC.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody. And I hope everybody supports TLDC and let's carry on the good work, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, thank you. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. We have more member showcases coming up next week. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but I think we have 3 more scheduled for next week and lots of other stuff. Don't forget to sign up for the free accessibility event we have coming up next month, AIDC 21. There's a link to it there. That's going to be really, really good. Programming is coming together very nicely. Very excited about it. I think it's going to be an excellent event for this year. And with that, we're going to sign off. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
We'll see you next time. Thanks again, Debbie.